He was listening at that moment to Sviashky and Liostov, the marshal of another district, who belonged to their party. Liostov would not agree to go with his district to ask Snetkov to stand, while Sviashky was persuading him to do so, and Sergei Ivanovich was approving of the plan. Levin could not make out why the opposition was to ask the marshal to stand whom they wanted to supersede. Stepan Arkadyevitch, who had just been drinking and taking some lunch, came up to them in his uniform of a gentleman of the bedchamber, wiping his lips with a perfumed handkerchief of bordered batiste. "We are placing our forces," he said, pulling out his whiskers, "Sergei Ivanovich." And listening to the conversation, he supported Sviashky's contention. "One district's enough, and Sviashky's obviously of the opposition," he said, words evidently intelligible to all except Levin. "Why, Kostya, you here too? I suppose you're converted, eh?" he added, turning to Levin and drawing his arm through his. Levin would have been glad indeed to be converted, but could not make out what the point was, and retreating a few steps from the speakers, he explained to Stepan Arkadyevitch his inability to understand why the marshal of the province should be asked to stand. O sancta simplicitas. Said Stepan Arkadyevitch, and briefly and clearly he explained it to Levin. If, as at previous elections, all the districts asked the marshal of the province to stand, then he would be elected without a ballot. That must not be. Now 8 districts had agreed to call upon him. If 2 refused to do so, Snetkov might decline to stand at all, and then the old party might choose another of their party, which would throw them completely out in their reckoning. But if only one district, Sviashky's, did not call upon him to stand, Snetkov would let himself be balloted for. They were even, some of them, going to vote for him, and purposely to let him get a good many votes, so that the enemy might be thrown off the scent, and when a candidate of the other side was put up, they too might give him some votes. Levin understood to some extent, but not fully, and would have put a few more questions, when suddenly everyone began talking and making a noise and they moved towards the big room. What is it? Eh? Whom? No guarantee? Whose? What? They won't pass him? No guarantee? They won't let Flarif in? Because of the charge against him? Why, at this rate, they won't admit anyone. It's a swindle. The law. Levin heard exclamations on all sides, and he moved into the big room together with the others, all hurrying somewhere and afraid of missing something. Squeezed by the crowding noblemen, he drew near the high table where the marshal of the province, Sviashki, and the other leaders were hotly disputing about something. Chapter 28. Levin was standing rather far off. A nobleman breathing heavily and hoarsely at his side, and another whose thick boots were creaking, prevented him from hearing distinctly. He could only hear the soft voice of the marshal faintly, then the shrill voice of the malignant gentleman, and then the voice of Sviashki. They were disputing, as far as he could make out, as to the interpretation to be put on the act and the exact meaning of the words, liable to be called up for trial. The crowd parted to make way for Sergei Ivanovich approaching the table. Sergei Ivanovich, waiting till the malignant gentleman had finished speaking, said that he thought the best solution would be to refer to the act itself, and ask the secretary to find the act. The act said that in case of difference of opinion, there must be a ballot. Sergei Ivanovich read the act and began to explain its meaning, but at that point a tall, stout, round-shouldered landowner, with dyed whiskers, in a tight uniform that cut the back of his neck, interrupted him. He went up to the table, and striking it with his finger ring, he shouted loudly. A ballot. Put it to the vote. No need for more talking. Then several voices began to talk all at once, and the tall nobleman with the ring, getting more and more exasperated, shouted more and more loudly. But it was impossible to make out what he said. He was shouting for the very course Sergei Ivanovich had proposed, but it was evident that he hated him and all his party, and this feeling of hatred spread through the whole party and roused in opposition to it the same vindictiveness, though in a more seemly form, on the other side. Shouts were raised, and for a moment all was confusion, so that the marshal of the province had to call for order. A ballot. A ballot. Every nobleman sees it. We shed our blood for our country. The confidence of the monarch. No checking the accounts of the marshal, he's not a cashier. But that's not the point. Votes, please. Beastly! Shouted furious and violent voices on all sides. Looks and faces were even more violent and furious than their words. They expressed the most implacable hatred. Levin did not in the least understand what was the matter, and he marveled at the passion with which it was disputed whether or not the decision about flare-ups should be put to the vote. He forgot, as Sergei Ivanovitch explained to him afterwards, this syllogism, that it was necessary for the public good to get rid of the marshal of the province, that to get rid of the marshal it was necessary to have a majority of votes, that to get a majority of votes it was necessary to secure Flareuf's right to vote, that to secure the recognition of Flareuf's right to vote they must decide on the interpretation to be put on the act. And one vote may decide the whole question, and one must be serious and consecutive, if one wants to be of use in public life, concluded Sergei Ivanovitch. But Levin forgot all that, and it was painful to him to see all these excellent persons, for whom he had a respect, in such an unpleasant and vicious state of excitement. To escape from this painful feeling he went away into the other room where there was nobody except the waiters at the refreshment bar. Seeing the waiters busy over washing up the crockery and setting in order their plates and wine glasses, seeing their calm and cheerful faces, Levin felt an unexpected sense of relief as though he had come out of a stuffy room into the fresh air. He began walking up and down, looking with pleasure at the waiters. He particularly liked the way one grey-whiskered waiter, who showed his scorn for the other younger ones and was jeered at by them, was teaching them how to fold up napkins properly. Levin was just about to enter into conversation with the old waiter, when the secretary of the court of wardship, a little old man whose specialty it was to know all the noblemen of the province by name and patronymic, drew him away. "Please come, Konstantin Dmitrovich," he said, "your brother's looking for you." "They are voting on the legal point." Levin walked into the room, received a white ball, and followed his brother, Sergei Ivanovitch, to the table where Sviazhsky was standing with a significant and ironical face, holding his beard in his fist and sniffing at it. Sergei Ivanovich put his hand into the box, put the ball somewhere, and making room for Levin, stopped. Levin advanced, but utterly forgetting what he was to do, and much embarrassed, he turned to Sergei Ivanovich with the question. Where am I to put it? He asked this softly, at a moment when there was talking going on near, so that he had hoped his question would not be overheard.